All right, there we go. And so now we begin by taking a deep breath, taking it in, out slowly, calming your mind and your body. And then we begin with taking a short refuge prayer. I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent for the benefit of all sentient beings. I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent for the benefit of all sentient beings. I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent for the benefit of all sentient beings. So we are on class number 17, and today we are looking at a practice, a long scale practice in Appendix C of the book, and that's on page 383 if you're following along in the Innate Happiness book. And so part of what we are doing here is looking at a fairly detailed version of a Sangha, or excuse me, a sadhana, because most of what we've been doing and most of what we will continue doing after this is for the most part related to very concise forms of practice. That's very effective for those of us who live in the culture that we do, and so those are the ones that I highly recommend as a part of it. But it's good to find some background to look into a deeper version of these practices, and so that is what we are doing today. And so this would be considered an intermediate level of complexity. There are ones that are much more complex that take days, literally, to do the practice and recite all of the text and so forth. So this isn't nearly that much, but it is the kind of thing that would be good if you were doing like a one-day retreat, a weekend retreat, something like that. And so let's go over that. This is the sadhana of the White Dakini. Now, we've talked about a short version of the White Dakini previously. And so now we're going into this. So this is the introduction, a short introduction that I included here. The idea for this sadhana came to me in a dream. It just happened. And then I was guided by the White Dakini in the form of Vajravarahi, a manifestation of Vajrayogini, and though she appeared white in color, usually she would be red in color. So that was very unusual. In a white form, she is also a manifestation of Samattabhadri. We have Samattabhadri, she is the female version, the embodiment of transcendent wisdom. According to Jigme Lingpa, who lived in the 1700s, the Nyingma master famous for finding hidden treasures or termas, Simhamukha represents the Nirmanakaya, Vajravarahi represents Sambhogakaya, and Samattabhadri represents the Dharmakaya. So that's a little bit different than the way these came to me in this dream, or actually it winds up because there's three of them, there's three different dreams, or there's actually multiple versions of each of those dreams before it all came together. However, in this instance, the white Vajravarahi, she appears in the Nirmanakaya form, so that too is a little bit unusual. She took me to a hidden place and showed the text in a script that I did not recognize. It was written on white paper in gold, and lines of gold looped across the page along with rectangular blocks of gold, somewhat reminiscent of music text, if you're familiar with those, but text usually have little round or oval shapes, and these were all little square ones. Actually, those are the kind of things that were in the very earliest form of music, with box kinds of things instead of the loops. So this one was a little like that, but on top of that, Usually the lines go straight across, if you're familiar with music texts. This one didn't. It went loop-de-loop and around all over the place. So it was very hard to try and understand, for me at least, exactly what might be going on here. And so it was a flowing about rather than being straight, if you will. And I did not know quite what to make of that for some time, but over time the text came to me, and so that I might be able to share it with you. So as the Nirmanakaya text, the focus is on the practice that involves the generation stage, the practices related to that based on primarily the sacred feminine. While this text may be used by anyone for study purposes, practitioners need to have completed the Nundro or do a short version as a preliminary practice to other meditations, a short daily type practice, and have an empowerment such as Vajravarahi. So those are some of the accepted requirements. When we get into highest yoga tantra, you're expected to have an empowerment as a part of it. And I know that can be, I've mentioned this before, it can be difficult to get a hold of. And so we do have access to some of those that you can get through our website. Go to the resources page on the website, and then it will take you to a list of 9 that you can just play on your computer and receive the empowerment. So this is Vajrayogini is a practice involving Vajravarahi or other highest yoga tantra empowerment. So the online links on our website, awaminstitute.org, and then the resources page, it's actually resources hyphen links, but you can see that when you get to the homepage. This is a practice for yogis, yoginis, and other lay practitioners. Since I'm not a realized being in that sense and have no notable credibility for such an endeavor, this happened quite a few years ago, I acknowledge that this may contain errors or omissions for which I accept complete responsibility. I ask only that you see it with naked awareness of transcendent wisdom and find it in it whatever benefit that you may. There are 2 other texts in this series, the Sadhana of the Red Dakini in the Sambhogakaya form, and the Sadhana of the Blue Dakini in the Dharmakaya form. And we'll look at both of those a little bit later. May they too be of benefit. So some have asserted that this is a mind transmission or a terma, maybe, but I don't make such an assertion as a part of that. So let's take a look here. So Sadhana of the White Dakini. So in a terrifying charnel ground on a mountain, in a cave, imagined or real, or in a place pleasing to the heart. So that's the context of where we are, or we should visualize that we are. So homage to Samattabhadri, Simhamukha, and Vajravarahi. So the 3 key dakinis in this set. So the mantra of increasing mantras magnifies the effect of all that follows. So light goes out as offerings to the Buddhas and returns as blessings. So we recite Om Sambara Sambara Bhimanasara Mahasambhava Hum Pe Soha 3 times, and then we do the Nundro practice, a version of the Nundro, the incomparable preliminary practices as it is translated. So first, the 4 thoughts that turn the mind, and I prostrate to Samattabhadri, because I suffer due to my own actions, and I now have this precious human life without knowing when I will die. I will now engage in wholesome actions for the benefit of all sentient beings with great joy and devotion. And so then the refuge tree visualization, a fairly standard kind of an outlook that we've talked about before. In front of me, on a jeweled throne supported by 8 snow lions, sits my root guru in the form of Padmasambhava and Yeshitsogya in union. Below and in front are tantric yidams. On the right, your left, are the Buddhas of the 4 times. Behind are the scriptures emblazoned with and resonating the vowels and consonants. We'll take a look a little bit more at those a little bit later on, but we have looked at some of those earlier in the course. On their left, your right, are the Bodhisattvas. Above are the Samattabhadra and Samattabhadri in union. All are surrounded by countless Dakinis and Dharmapalas. So those are wrathful yidams who guard the teachings, protectors, and sacred spaces, and so forth. So the Dharmapalas, filling all of space. My mother and father are next to me. All other sentient beings, including my enemies, are in front of me. So the last part of that is something you don't rarely see, or you very rarely see in text as a part of that. But it's a nice way to get the bigger picture of that. And when we were doing the practice earlier, we indicated that as well. Outer refuge and bodhicitta. I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, abiding softly and deeply in pure non-conceptual awareness of the ineffable oneness, openness, and spontaneous radiant display, manifesting immeasurable, unconditional loving kindness, compassion, joy or happiness, and equanimity or mental calm for the benefit of all. That contains a lot of very powerful speech, words, concepts as a part of that. So those are things that we'll talk more about when we get to the Dzogchen texts. Then it continues the inner refuge and bodhicitta. So notice bodhicitta shows up in both of those, and it will in the next 2 as well. I take refuge in the Guru, Yidam, and Dakini, and then the text is the same as in the previous one. And then the secret refuge and bodhicitta, I take refuge in the Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya, and then it continues in the same as the earliest one. And then the most secret refuge and bodhicitta, I take refuge, kind of a transcendence. So it's beyond words, if you will. And we dissolve the visualization into pure awareness with loving kindness and compassion for all, and abide briefly in complete stillness. And it's body, speech, mind, all are still, state of peace. Then we continue on to the action bodhicitta, the 4 immeasurables, and here included the verse for this. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. And may they rest in equanimity, mental calm, free from attachment and aversion. And that's recited 3 times. Then Vajrasattva purifications, the 3 purifications or washings, it's sometimes described as, to remove all causes of suffering. So the Buddha, originally he said, life is full of suffering, and we want to get rid of all of that suffering, and then we will become liberated and achieve enlightenment. So Vajrasattva purifications, those 3 purifications and washings, visualize Vajrasattva and Vajratopa in union above the crown of your head. White nectar enters through the crown of your head from the place of union, purifying your body, speech, and mind as it fills your body while reciting the mantras. Just feel it as you do that. As it comes down in through your body, just feel it washing everything away. And of course, we did this practice before. So, Om Benza Sato Samaya, Manupalaya, so forth. We won't go through all of that, but it's usually recited 3 times or maybe 1 time. In this text, we do it typically 1 time. And then we go to the second one, which is Om Benza Sato Ah. And so again, we would do this one like 1 mala, or as many times as you can, and this cleans away subtle obscurations that we have. And then the third one is Oma Hong Free. Same thing, 1 mala or as many as you can. And this cleanses the habitual tendencies that we have. So we first get rid of the things that are obvious and there, and then we get rid of the more subtle kind of things, and finally we get rid of those things that are just habits. We've removed them temporarily, but those habits tend to stick around, and so they get in the way. And so this one is said to help get rid of those as well. And then we make our offerings, outer, inner, secret, and most sacred, with a bell and drum or a hand mudra. So I make the 8 outer offerings. So Om Argam Padyam, Om Argam Ahong, Om Padyam Ahong, Om Pupe Ahong, Om Dupe Ahong, Om Alake Ahong, Om Gande Ahong, Om Nevade Ahong, Om Shapta Ahong. So those are the 8 offerings we've looked at previously. So then we make inner offerings of semen, bones, brain, blood, and flesh. These are imaginary, but these are the kind of things that we see when we get into these more wrathful forms of practice. And so the text, Om Maha Mamsa Rakta Gortsana Kingni Riti Shukra Pudza Ahom, 3 times. And then I make, so those were the inner offerings. So now we do the secret offerings, so the union of lotus and vajra, the masculine and feminine qualities. Om Benza Peme Benza Putza Ahom, again, 3 times. And then finally, the most secret offering is of Buddha nature itself. Om Tathagata Garbha Ahom. So Tathagata Garbha is Buddha nature. And again, 3 times. So each of these is repeated 3 times in this particular schedule. Then we go on to the 7-line prayer of Guru Yoga. Om Ahom. And we're familiar with that one, so I'm not going to go ahead and read it right now because we've got a lot to go through today. But we pray to it. At the end is the mantra, Guru Pama Siddhi Hong. Also repeated, the whole thing is repeated 3 times, or as many times as you can. And then we have a visualization that comes up that is more unusual than what we probably have encountered. And so as we are reciting the text up above there, we go through these lights. And so we have a white light, red, blue, yellow, and green light. And there's symbolism involved with each one of these. So I'm going to read through them. It's in the text. It radiates, the first one, the white light radiates from the forehead of Padmasambhava into my forehead, purifying my body, planting the seed of Nirmanakaya, empowering the practice of generation stage, and revealing appearance emptiness. The second one, the red light, radiates from the throat of Padmasambhava into my throat, purifying my speech, planting the seed of Sambhogakaya, empowering the practice of the Jnana Mudra yogas, and revealing the luminous emptiness or insight. Then we go to the blue light, which is at our heart. It radiates from the heart of Padmasambhava into my heart, purifying my mind, planting the seed of Dharmakaya, empowering the practice of karma mudra yogas. These are the ones related to sexual union, but they're usually just done as a visualization. And revealing the bliss emptiness. Then the yellow light radiates from the navel of Padmasambhava into my navel, purifying all subtle obscurations, planting the seed of Abhisambodhikaya, the body of complete awakening, and empowering the practice of Dzogchen Trekcho. So now getting empowerments here that go on into more advanced practices, and this reveals the awareness emptiness. And finally, the green light, which radiates from the secret place of Padmasambhava into my secret place, purifying all habitual tendencies, planting the seed of Vajrakaya, the transcendent body, empowering the practice of Dzogchen Togao, and revealing the great compassion emptiness. So 5 lights, 5 different empowerments that are associated with those. And so then the guru dissolves into light and merges inseparably into myself. So we've been visualizing him as being out in front of us, and now all the lights have come into us, and so now he does as well. And oftentimes as a part of that, it's not him alone, but both him and his consort. And so they come into us. So it dissolves into light, merges inseparably into myself, and we abide in the suchness as long as we can. Then there's a dedication. With all the good virtue I have accumulated in samsara and nirvana, I pray that discursive thought of all sentient beings would be eliminated, that they would achieve the ultimate liberation and obtain the rainbow body, just like Ripa Guru Padmasambhavas. So he was noted for having attained a rainbow body. There's no historical evidence for that, but that's the way that he has been developed and articulated within the tradition. So then we go on to specific preliminaries. Emptiness mantra. This establishes awareness of emptiness as the basis for recitation and meditation. All things and I are the embodiment of that indestructible wisdom that is emptiness. So that's the concept behind this. And then there's the mantra. Om Swabhava Shuddha Sarvadhamma Swabhava Shuddha Ham. You should be familiar with that particular one. That's an emptiness mantra. But there's another one as well. Om Shunyata Jnana Benza Swabhava Amako Ham. Okay, that one I don't recite very often. So then clearing away non-conducive conditions by first expelling negative mental obscurations and afflictive emotions as demons. So we're getting rid of those demon elements, if you will. So the text says, from luminous emptiness, my own Buddha nature arises, Bam, syllable, transforming into the white Vajravarahi in her form. I generate the red terma offering by clearing away concepts, increasing to countless numbers, blessing with all desirable qualities to arise as the offering that becomes inexhaustible. Om Ahong Ho, 3 times. So the light then radiates from my heart to summon and draw in the demonic forces, and I make the offerings with the drum and the bell. Okay. Try to find some images that I had here to share with you. And so this first one is the broom that was mentioned in, or bomb that was mentioned in the text. So this one looks like this. Okay. So that's the bomb syllable, often associated with the female figures as a part of that. Put these aside for right now. And so then the text that goes along with that, it is red in color as it was indicated there. And then the Om Ahong Ho 3 times, the light radiates out from my heart to summon and draw in the demonic forces. I make the offerings with the bell and the drum, as I had just said. And then to do that, Sarva Balingta Ka Ka Kahi Kahi. So they partake and are satisfied. We take the terma plate. The terma plate might be, it could be almost anything, but the terma plate is often something like this. And it's usually in the fingers like this. So the 2 middle fingers and the 2 outside fingers holding it upright. And when it is completed, we retain a little bit of whatever the food offering is, and we put it in this, and it's collected, taken outside of the center or wherever you happen to be, and then it's brought back in the same way, but upside down. Okay? So, so again, they partake and are satisfied. They take the terma plate outside, holding it with the right hand, palm down, and the index and middle fingers at the top edge of the thumb, and the ring fingers supporting it from below the edge. Place it away from the shrine room, and leave the terma and return with the plate upside down, placing it back on the offering table. So we're making this offering to benefit those that could become problematic during our practice. And so this symbolically says, okay, we're providing these kinds of things to those. You can go have your little feast and just leave us alone. All right, so we cast out the obstructive spirits then with the text Om Sambani Hong Pate. And we snap our left hand fingers, and then Om Grinapaya Hong Pate. Om Grinapaya, oh, sorry, I missed that. Grihana Hong Pate, the second one. And then the Grinapaya Hong Pate. And then the Anaya Ho Bhagawan Vidya Raja Hong Pate, the fourth one. And then that's followed by the bell and the drum. The wheel of protection is the next part of this. Now, this is something that we don't typically see in the short kind of practices that we normally do. So the wheel of protection. From the bomb at my heart, burning fire, Vajra weapons, and tiny Vajravarahis stream forth in all directions to annihilate any remaining obscurations. So they come out of our heart and they're getting rid of any other problematic characteristics. The Vajra weapons then form a solid foundation of blue Vajras. It's circled by Vajra fence, the Vajra canopy, and surrounding mass of blazing fire, Vajra water with pounding waves, and Vajra wind that is sharp and violent. And 5 poisons are transformed into 5 wisdoms as the wheel of protection. So that's quite a view. So Om Namah Sarva Kaya Griti Niti Ahom 3 times. Okay. And so then we continue by establishing the conducive conditions for the practice. Excuse me. In my ordinary form, a rain of blessings descends from everywhere and melts into me and my environment, removing all impurities. So now we are pure, then we make the blessing of the offering materials. So I arise again as white Vajravarahi. And I wanted here to show you some pictures for this. There's a variety of different kind of views, as I kind of alluded to. One of the ways in which Vajravarahi, or Vajrayogini for that matter, are shown are in a tetrahedron. And so the tetrahedron is the 6-pointed star-like thing that you can see there. In this case, this is Vajravarahi, Vajrayogini, excuse me, as is the one right below that. Okay, but you can see it forms a kind of a 6-pointed star, if you will. But in the second one down here, you can also see that it has this kind of a pyramid down below it. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. Now, here is an example of what that might look like. Okay. In this case, there's no figure. It's a little fuzzy, but the top part there is just the bomb syllable, and around it, which is almost also very difficult to see, maybe I don't know if you can see it up close, but it's pretty fuzzy there, is the mantra. And so here's another version of that. So in this case, again, Vajrayogini, but Vajrayogini is being shown inside of the tetrahedron. Okay, same idea, but just a little bit different place. And then I wanted to give you some other images of the white Vajravarahi. As I mentioned at the beginning, it was very rare that we would have a white version of Vajravarahi. She was almost always red. Well, it turns out that there are a variety of those. So let me give you some examples here. Okay, so here she is in white and with her ornaments and so forth. And then another version. Slight color to her, but still basically white. And a third one. Now this is the one that actually is on the Tonka painting that I purchased for the 3. And so again, we have her and a little bit more of a wrathful version than in the other 2, but they're basically all the same. One other thing I wanted to illustrate here is that I mentioned Yogini Vajravarahi, and so here's an image, see if I can do it over here, image that shows the 2. So Vajravarahi here is the one standing, and Vajrayogini is the one looking to the side, holding her hand up above her head with the skull cup as a part of that. Okay, so set those down and let's continue on here. So as a part of this, we have the broom transforms into the vast jeweled skull cup, the resting upon the hearth of the 3 heads and containing the 5 nectars, feces, brain, semen, blood, and urine, marked with the syllables Om, Kam, Am, Tram, and Hong in the east, the north, the west, the south, and center, and then the 5 meats, cow, dog, elephant, horse, and human, marked with the syllables Lam, Mam, Pam, Tam, Bam, and the southeast, southwest, northwest, and northeast, and center. I have here, get it. This is what would go over the top of the skull cup, a fairly large one. And you can see the figures that are in each of these. And so that kind of gives an illustration of the kind of things that are being addressed here. Okay. So now the wind blows and the fire blazes, the seed syllables melt into the 5 Buddhas and consorts. From the points of their union, red and white substances mingle and descend into the skull cup and dissolve into the 5 meats and nectars, filling the cup and dissolving the 5 meats and nectars. The 5 Buddhas and consorts also dissolve and melt into the nectar. From a hong above, a white upside down Katvanga melts into the nectar, turning it into the color of mercury, so kind of a silvery light color. This offering to medicine, Amrita, now fully endowed with the 5 wisdoms, is blessed with Om Ahung Sarvapanta Amrita Hum Hri Ta. 3 times. Next, a second vast jeweled vessel. So one's not enough. So we have a second version of this. And this has represented the entire inanimate world that manifests, containing the white terma, which represents the entire animate world. So the reason for the 2 is the difference between those 2. So Om Ahum Maha Balinkta Tetso Balinkta Balawate Koya Samaya Hong Hri Ta, and 3 times, of course. Then a vast vessel made of freshly severed skull, filled with blood and red tarma, symbolizing all desires and attachments of the 3 realms. but is of the nature of desireless great bliss, and blessed with Oma Hong Maha Rakta Zola Mandala Hong Hri Ta 3 times. So those are just the preliminary practices, getting through, setting everything, setting up the stage, and making sure that it's pure, it's clear, it's ready to go. Excuse me. The main practice, then, the samadhis of the 3 kayas, which we looked at briefly before, the samadhi of suchness, the Dharmakaya, is emptiness, neither existent nor non-existent. Transcends those labels. Non-conceptual pure awareness. And then the samadhi of luminosity, Sambhogakaya, is the great compassion for the suffering of all sentient beings and the illusory nature of all appearances. So the things that we surround us in our lives, we see as if they are real, and I suppose you could say in a way they are real, but they're not the way that they appear. We know from science that there's all kinds of different things going on that we can't see at all, and things that we do see, their actual structure made out of atoms and all kinds of other pieces of atoms and so forth. We don't see those, okay? So it's not the way that it appears to us. So then the samadhi of supreme cause, the Nirmanakaya, is the union of emptiness and compassion radiating brilliant red light from the seed syllable BAM, the seed syllable for this practice, in all directions to liberate all sentient beings. And so I have a BAM syllable. I showed you one before. There's the BAM syllable. So it goes out, liberates all sentient beings. So mentally, you see all sentient beings being purified. And then generating the support, and these relate to the 5 elements, the center of the wheel of protection, and these are stacked up on top of each other. So the first one is the syllable A, transformed into a blue, long, inverted, 3-sided pyramid, a tetrahedron, in the form of space. Now, space doesn't actually have any form, but this is a conceptualization of that. And then on top of this, the syllable yam is transformed into a crossed vajra circled by dark green smoke as the element air. Then above this, the syllable ram is transformed into the red cube as the element fire. And then over this, the syllable bam is transformed into the sphere of white light as the element water. And finally, or next, the syllable lam is transformed into the gold cube of light as the element earth. So these are all stacked up, but then at the very top, the syllable sum is transformed into Mount Meru, who is considered in ancient times to be the center of the entire universe, in the shape of a 4-sided pyramid covered with gold on the front and lapis lazuli on the left, rupees on the back or the top, and then mother of pearl on the right. So those 4 colors, it's more like a pyramid, a 4-sided pyramid than an actual mountain that is described as a mountain. And then reciting Broom, the syllable descends to the top of Mount Meru, melts into light, and causes the celestial mansion to appear, surrounding the 8 charnel grounds. So now up at the top, we come down and create the area for the celestial mansion. I guess it doesn't give, doesn't specify exactly what it is. In this center, its center is a 1,000 petaled lotus with a sun disk and a crossed vajra and blue square. There are 4 sides of 5 concentric
layer walls and a red landing with 16 offering goddesses facing in. So the landing is like a little patio on the outside of the four parts of this. And so they're around that, but they're looking inward, not outward. So at the top of the outer wall is a yellow border with jewels and then tiny pillars up to the roof. The outer east wall is white, the outer south wall is yellow, the outer west wall is red, and the outer north wall is green. So if you walk around it, you have four different colors. The walls are different colors. There are four entrances with four pillared porticos. And so in the middle of each of those walls is a doorway that opens up, and it has this little portico through which you would go to enter. It's decorated with dharma wheels, umbrellas, banners, antelopes, and yak-tail fans. Inside, there are 8 pillars made of skulls that support the 4 beams made of bones. So this is a wrathful one. It includes some things that we don't normally see in the descriptions for these. The walls are made of dry, moist, and fresh skulls. The rafters are adorned with garlands of fingers, skulls, organs, genitals, and the sun and moon. The dome of the room is a great god's skull and a hanging net of intestines and skulls. The top of the roof is a heart, banner, and canopy made of human skin. A terrifying firelight pervades the environment. So the intention is to make one want to transcend this life for liberation, okay? I don't want to live in a place like that. Hopefully you don't either. So then the generation of the seat of the yidam. In the center, a white inverted dharmadaya. Don't have a picture of that, but it appears containing a white lotus. So there's this area, and then there's a white lotus with a sun disk that appears, a white seed syllable bomb. We looked at that. My pure awareness. It arises as the 5-pointed Vajra, representing the 5 primordial wisdoms. The light radiates from the Vajra as an offering to the Buddhas and returns as a blessing. It then radiates to all sentient beings, transforming them into Vajravarahis, which is a fairly common kind of thing in these practices, is that something goes and it transforms them into something else, and it's usually related to the central figure of that. So Vajravarahi here then returns, transforming the Vajra into myself as brilliant white Vajravarahi, the Samaya Sattva, or the commitment being, as a part of that. Then we have a description of this. So I have one face, 3 eyes. So usually the 2 eyes and then another one here between the eyebrows or the middle of the crown of the head. And we also have a semi-wrathful expression and 2 arms. In my right hand is a Vajra, and in my left a skull cup filled with the elixir of primordial awareness. So that symbolism is a part of that. And I'm youthful and naked with nothing to hide, standing in a dancing pose. And that's part of the difference between Vajravarahi and Vajrayogini. So Vajrayogini is in what's called a warrior pose, and Vajravarahi a dancing pose. She's facing directly with one leg up. And my secret lotus open, I am adorned with the crown of 5 skulls, alternating with 5 Vajras, a necklace of 50 dried skulls. So sometimes you see that they're usually small. They're not the size of an actual live skull, but they go around the neck and they hang down long and so forth. And then 5 bone ornaments. I hold a kavanga. kind of a staff tipped with a Vajra, and then three skulls, a wish-fulfilling vase, and crossed Vajras in my left arm as my consort. So she is said to have a consort, but the consort is not a visible human being in that case, with hanging drum, bell, and three-pointed banner. I am surrounded by the fire of primordial wisdom. So there's this fiery ring around her as a part of that, or around us as a part of that. Upon moon discs at my navel is a red Vajravarahi. At my heart, a blue Yamani. At my throat, a white Mohani. At my forehead, a yellow Satyalini. At the crown of my head, a green Samtasani. And at my limbs, a smoking gray Chandika. So this is a fierce Dakini, or protective goddess, as kind of a way of understanding. So then we continue here. This is all in our imagination. My heart is a white double tetrahedron, which is the form that we were looking at, the six-pointed star coming down into a point. Two inverted three-sided pyramids superimposed on each other, forming the six-pointed star at the top. Inside of which is the lotus and sun disk and the white seed syllable Bam, the Samadhi Sattva, and the essence being, the nature of the root guru and the union of bliss and emptiness standing upright. And then it is surrounded by the mantra arranged in counterclockwise facing outward. Om Benza Verochani Soha. So that's her mantra as a part of that. And then I am surrounded by 4 dakinis in the 4 cardinal directions. One on my left is green, one on my back is red, the one on my right is yellow, the one in front is white. Outside this is a circle of 8 dakinis, then another circle of 8, and a third circle of 8, and a fourth circle of 8, making a total of 5 circles of dakinis, all in the form of Vajravarahi, with Vajra, skull cup, and so forth. Okay? So it forms these circles, all of these beings being there as a part of this. Then invoking the Jnana Sattvas, the wisdom beings, form the blazing mudra, and raise over your head. This is the description of how to do this, but let me read it to you first. So the blazing mudra, and raise it up over your head, then gracefully make 3 small circles counterclockwise, 3 clockwise, and 3 more counterclockwise. And then say "Pei" loudly and release the mudra outwards. So it's 2 hands, thumbs and index fingers together, and it says hold it over your head, but it's actually usually described as being above your head in 2-dimensional form. And so it starts with that, and then we go around, and it starts out counterclockwise from your view. And so I'm going counterclockwise, so I'm going around 1, 2, 3, and then we go the other way. 1, 2, 3, and one more. 1, 2, 3, and "Pei!" And so the mudra is vanished, and then from a white bomb at my heart, light radiates out to the Akanishta Buddha field to invite Vajravarahi and all Dakas and Dakinis and purified sentient beings, now in the form of Vajravarahi. Now, this is a fairly common kind of a practice here, that all the beings transform, whether it's Buddhists or Bodhisattvas or other sentient beings, they all transform into the same type of a figure. So through the power of your commitment, come to me. So we're asking all of them, we're inviting all of them to come. Om Benza Samaya Za. So then we do homage. I bow down to the host of the mandala of Vajravarahi, illusory bodily forms of primordial awareness, inseparable from myself. Okay, so they're in our mind. Ati puho pratita ho. And then we make offerings. From the bottom of my heart, the 8 offering yoginis appear to the divine host of the mandala, Vajravarahi. They make outer offerings with the bell and drum. And then Om Ahung Argam Pajam Pupe Dupe Alake Gande Nevade Shapta Putsa Ho. So you're familiar with those hand mudras. And then they make inner offerings of semen, bones, brain, blood, and flesh with the bell and drum. Om Ahung Maha Mamsa Rakta Goratsana Kiniriti Shukra Putsa Ho. 3 times. Then they make the secret offering. So here's the union of lotus and vajra with the bell and drum. Om Ahung Benza Peme Banza Putsa Ho. 3 times. They make the most secret offering of Buddha nature, again with bell and drum. Om Ahung Tathagata Garba Putsa Ho. 3 times. The host of the Jnanasattvas partakes of the offerings and is pleased, followed with the drum, and taking offering plates with the edible 3 red and white termas outside for other beings, just as we did previously, and return the plates to the shrine and place them upside down. So then we make a request for the empowerment. We're finally getting to that part of the practice. Om Sarva Tathagata Abhishekata Samaya Om. My body is filled with water and is purified. We often use water, so at least symbolically, for purification. Excess water on the crown of my head transforms into Virachana. So now we have Virachana, one of the 5 Buddha families. Shows up there. With Za, the beings are above me. With Hong, they enter into the crown of my head, descend through the central channel to the Bam. With the Bam, they become inseparable. With the Samadhi Sattva, Bam, and with the Ho, I experience great bliss. We continue on then with the actual mantra is Da Hong Bam Ho. Om Swabhava Shuddha Sarvadhamma Swabhava Shuddho Ham. And then praise, 4 lines here. To the enlightened bodily form of Vajravarahi, arise from luminosity. To her enlightened speech and the unceasing melody of the mantra. To her enlightened mind, the primordial awareness, luminous clarity. To the White Dakini, who is utter perfection of the 5 kayas of enlightened presence, I bow down. And again, we ring the bell. And then the mantra recitation and dissolution. Okay, so now we've gone through all of that ritual preparing for the actual mantra itself. So while visualizing the complete mandala previously constructed with myself as Vajravarahi and the mantra rotating clockwise as seen from the outside, white light radiates out to all Buddhas and sentient beings as Vajravarahi and returns as blessings. So we're radiating all of those out from our body to all beings, and then they come back to us as blessings. Om Benza Virachaniye Soha. So that is her mantra. And so we recite that 1 mala or however many times that you can for accumulation. Now, in some cases, there's an expectation that you're going to do these a certain number of times from the Lama that gives the empowerment. When that is the case, then you may want to do these for a much longer period of time in higher numbers. Perhaps have your mala, and then also perhaps a little clicker to keep track of how many malas that you have done. So then the dissolution, it dissolves the visualization from the outside into yourself as Vajravarahi, then yourself into the Samadhi Sattva seed syllable, then the seed syllable from the bottom up through the crescent, bindu, and nada into emptiness. So if we look, the seed syllable here is this one. And so we start at the bottom. Now, in this case, there were some other things down below this, but then we get up to the actual seed syllable, and we go up through this a little bit, up through the crescent, the bindu, and the forgetting what it is. Sorry. Lost my place here. Okay, so we dissolve the visualization from the outside into yourself as Vajravarahi, then yourself into the Samadhi Sattva seed syllable, then the seed syllable from the bottom up through the crescent, bindu, and nada that I was showing, into emptiness. Emptiness is not a thing, it is not no thing, it is not both, nor is it neither. So it's transcended. It transcends all four of those ideas. Abide softly and deeply in the innate happiness, the pure, naked, non-conceptual awareness of transcendent wisdom as long as you can. So this is the meditation part. Excuse me. Arise then, once you've completed the meditation, arise once again in the inner peace of bliss emptiness, of the illusory bodily form of white Vajravarahi, with the pure awareness of clear light and radiating white light for the benefit of all sentient beings. See all beings as Buddhas, hear all sounds as mantras, think all thoughts as wisdom of the Buddhas, and accept all phenomena as the pure Buddha field of liberation. And then the closing prayers. Now, this closing prayer is a very unusual one. This is a Dzogchen type of a closing prayer. Very different from what we typically would see in other forms. But I wanted to share it with you. The conventionally visualized being, Samaya Sattva, and the being of primordial awareness, Jnana Sattva, are not two different things. So there is no need to make a request to remain. It's very common to invite or ask the yidams to remain, not leave us behind. They arise from myself, are transformations of my own free will, my own awareness being the ground and source. So what need is there for empowerment or full establishment? Questioning whether there's actually a need there for an empowerment. Furthermore, the many desirable sense qualities are ornaments of the play of primordial awareness, my own mind. So everything is in our mind. Emanated from myself and offered to myself. Do not seek samaya, vows, in other substances of offering. The measureless palace of phenomena and spiritual preceptor and yidams are all great mandalas setting its seal on reality, again, in my mind. Just as the appearances are in the mandala of water, so like a reflection, are devoid of self-nature, for example. So the impermanent or sacred, life-giving nature of water, sometimes it's defined in that way. View them as arising from the state free of taking things as real. The penetrating insight, beyond word or expression. The unwavering enlightened dimension of absolute reality, Dharmakaya. So it's transcendent.
Chief of the five families, the enlightened dimension of perfect enjoyment, the qualities of great bliss, or Sambhogakaya. Joy and peace, and liberation, and the great enlightened dimension of manifest appearance, the hundredfold skillful means of compassion, or Nirmanakaya. So it's considered to be something that is effortless, it's natural and spontaneous kinds of action that we engage in here over some sort of a moral duty that we have to do. To all the yidams of the three dimensions, or kayas, of enlightened presence, I bow down. And we ring the bell. So the mantra of increasing mantras is given here. Om Sambhara Sambhara Vimanasara Mahasambhava Page Soha. And then it goes to these. I'm not going to read all of these because we're running short on time here. But first there's a list of the Sanskrit vowels, and oftentimes those are cited at the end, especially in these long practices. Sanskrit consonants also are part of this. And then the mantra of dependent origination, we're familiar with that. And then the 100-syllable mantra, we're also familiar with that. Long life prayers, in this case it has long life prayers for His Holiness the Dalai Lama, as well as His Holiness Khenchen Lama. And then there's one for all gurus, a nice short one for that. That's then followed by the wish for Bodhicitta. And so we're asking that all beings achieve that state of Bodhicitta as a part of that. So there's a nice prayer associated with that as well. And then that is followed by the dedication. By the virtue of this, may I and all sentient beings accomplish the state of the Dakini. Without leaving a single sentient being behind, may I liberate them to the state of the Dakini. And that's repeated 3 times again, followed by the bell and drum on a part of that. So that concludes what we're going to cover for today. And so since I'm going to be away on vacation for the next 3 weeks, I won't be able to pass along the ongoing parts of this chapter, but we will come back to that on the 29th of April. And so we'll do it then and get back into our regular weekly schedule on Sundays as a part of that. And so the end of the chapter begins with following various ritual kind of things like the mandala, the drums and bells, blessings, ganachakra or tsok feast as a part of it, a smoke offering or puja as some of those. So we're going to be going through some simple forms of all of those as well when we get back together again. So that is the main thing for our practice today, and I hope that you found it helpful to you. I know it's a really long kind of a practice, but if you have the opportunity to do that kind of a practice at least once in a while, you can do it once a month perhaps, or if you have a little retreat or a weekend that you can commit yourself to doing that, that would be really wonderful. And so please abide softly and deeply in pure awareness with loving kindness and compassion for all sentient beings, always and always. And more than ever, please pray for peace. Thank you very much.